In this brief video, I'll be demonstrating how to process some of the batch classes that are currently available for the digital imaging product. We're going to assume that the scanning has already taken place, as images can be delivered to the Kofax batch system directly by the operator creating the batch and scanning the batch, or by using multifunction devices attached to your network where the documents are scanned and the import controller grabs those images and automatically generates these jobs that you see within the Kofax Batch Manager application. Each particular batch has a standard set of processes or queues in which they go through, and the operator is then required to deal with those queues and ensure that they're processed correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Notice of Assessment batch class that's already been scanned, it's already been recognized, and the system has now delivered it to the quality control queue, which requires the human to be involved to check if the recognition process separated the documents correctly for us and did they identify the documents accordingly. So I will choose the process icon, or I could right mouse click and choose process. It'll open up the quality control module and it'll deliver on the left hand side the documents that it believes conform to the templates that we've designed. So it believes that this document is a Notice of Assessment refund, and that this is a Notice of Assessment refund, and so forth. And there's a Notice of Assessment EFT. And you can see the pages pertaining to it. If you've got a document scanner attached, the scan source will show the name of the scanner. If you've got a Fujitsu or a Canon or a Kodak scanner, it'll show here. If you're using the import process, then the software import option is displayed in this top left corner. If you find, for whatever reason, that the images are incorrect, you have the opportunity to do several tasks here. You can either use your toolbars, like delete, reject, rotate, or you can use standard windows like drag and drop objects around in different order. So you can see I can drag pages around, I can take one page from one document and add it to another, and vice versa, drop it around. If, for example, the images were of poor quality and you had a document scanner attached, and let's assume that front page of the document was poor, you can right mouse click and you'd be able to click on replace. As soon as you click the replace function with a document scanner attached, it will scan whatever sheet of paper, and only one sheet of paper, and replace that page with the new image that has just been scanned. If I click replace, it'll automatically want to replace it with an image that has been filed on my network drive, so it opens up my Windows Explorer, and I would then go and find the image that I might have scanned using another appliance of some sort. So the function's still the same. You can replace an image with a scanner, or replace it by rescanning it and dropping it on a drive location that you know where it's located, and you will go and find it. Of course, if the images are faced the wrong way, you can rotate them around and so forth. So you have the opportunity of doing two things here. Check the quality of the document, that the quality of the image looks fine and readable. Two, that the software has identified the documents correctly. If you find that the documents have not been identified correctly, for example, this is not a Notice of Assessment, let's assume it's a Notice of Amended Assessment, then you can right mouse click and change the form. Here are all the current forms according to your batch class system that's available to you, and a thumbnail of what that image looks like. So you can see that it thinks that it looks like this image. And in this case, yes it is, but we're going to assume that it's, for example, it's a notice of amended assessment refund, which looks something like that. So you can automatically redefine the form according to your list. And if you find that this actually isn't a form relating to tax, it is not a document that should have been scanned, but it is something to do with notice of assessments, however, you just want to file it, then we've got a notice of assessment file only option, which won't update tax, and it'll just allow you to save the document to your document management system. You have to give it some sort of unique name. At least you don't lose the document. So you have the opportunity here to change the form type. My suggestion is that if you do change any of the form types, let's assume we're going to change this to a notice of amended assessment that is a refund, then because recognition has already happened, it has already scraped off the data based upon a notice of assessment refund, not a notice of amended assessment refund. So there could be information on this document that has not been captured. So if you change the document, then I suggest that when you're finished checking the entire batch, you send the document back to recognition. So the way we do that is once we're finished, we can close the batch and we look at the job and see what's the next stage. So I'm going to hit the F5 key to refresh it, and it says that the next stage of the queue was to go to validation. However, because I had split the document or I had actually changed the form, I'm going to send it back to the recognition process. After recognition, it's going to come back again to quality control, and then it's going to hit the validation stage, and after validation it's going to generate a PDF document, and then it will export that PDF document into Practice Manager and your document management system. And then of course, if there are any events assigned to the forms, it will process and update those events. But once it's exported, the Kofax system has completed its task. So if I send this back to recognition, and I've got recognition running currently in the background, you can see that it was quite quick in regards to recognizing the change in the form, and it's just sent it back to quality control. So I have the opportunity of going back to quality control again, but I've already done it once and I've already split the forms and separated them, so I know that the quality control is okay. So I'm now deliberately going to bypass quality control because I've done it once, and I'm going to go straight to validation. So I now require to validate the data that's been recognized from each of the documents. And Kofax will automatically stop on index fields that predominantly contain currency amounts. The green box indicates to us that it is very confident that for the result of the notice refundable, it was able to capture the data at quite a high accuracy. However, it could be wrong. It could still have a green box and the data could be incorrect. So we automatically stop on values that we believe is quite important. You'll notice that the tax file number, the client, the reference number, the date of issue and the financial year was completely bypassed because it was able to extract all that information with such a high level of accuracy that it doesn't believe that it needs to stop and show you anything in that area. So it's stopping at that index field, so I need to just check to make sure that that is correct, and I just tab through to the next field, and it thinks it's found the PAYG withholdings, and it's correct. And on certain circumstances, if the result of the notice and the actual refund are equal, my system will skip past that and go to the next index field that it needs to stop on. For example, if we didn't push the document to recognition and it's come back into straight to validation, you will notice that you should receive blank indexes. That's basically indicating that the document did not go back to the recognition engine after you've separated or split it, and it wasn't able to collect the appropriate information. So you have two choices here. You just can manually key in the value, and in this case I'm just going to key in what I find on the document, hoping that that index value or the tax file number exists in Practice Manager, and if it does, it moves on to the next index field. You also sometimes have an opportunity of using this rubber band function. Now it depends on your computer's performance and speed. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, so while it's on the ATO reference, I might just drag my mouse around from top left to bottom right corner and hope for the best that it will actually try to OCR or recognize that data. In this case it didn't, so I'm just going to type it in. You'll get to know which document numbers and index fields the rubber bands actually work. And then I just tab through the date of issue. I can try that again and see if it'll pick up the date of issue for me. In this case it's not, so I'll just type in the date of issue, 4th of the 2nd, 2011, and it's related to the 2010 financial year and so forth. So as you can see, that illustrates what happens when you don't send a document back to recognition if you've decided to split the document or create a new document or change a document from one type of document to another. So I'm just going to ignore all these values for the moment and let it move on to the next recognized form. And as you can see, the different types of forms, you'll be presented with different index values. Now some of these indexes can be turned off. So for example, if you're not interested in PAYG withholdings, you can look at our how-to videos and it will show you how to hide the PAYG withholdings value. So you can make up your mind which indexes that you feel is appropriate to collect and which indexes you feel is going to be used for updating Tax Manager. So the batch process will then continue on automatically in the background, and if you find that the progress or the status shows that it's ready and it sits in the ready mode for quite a long time, especially for recognition or for PDF or for export, then it's most likely your Kofax services are not running in the background. That's fine, because you can just right mouse click and hit process, or you can just click on the process icon to kick it on to the next process. So at the moment I've got, if I hit the refresh screen F5, you can see that notice of assessment job has now disappeared and that the digital imaging system, if you open up the digital imaging interface and click on the scans icon and just refresh it, you'll see that you've now scanned 4 documents, and there's a couple with warnings and some with a success. So you can see that this particular success one was that the tax assessment update was successful and it's waiting for some letters to be generated. And you can see by double clicking on the DMS entry that will open up the document according to your document management system. So if it's PM, iManage or Virtual Cabinet, you'll be able to double click on the DMS entry and it will reveal the scanned document for you. The next thing we should be looking at is, once we've processed a batch, is to see if there are any warnings and then deal with those warnings accordingly. So for example, there's a warning to say the tax assessment update failed to update, and it was all due to a missing entry. In other words, for the 2010 return for this client, there's no tax return. And that's according to my tax management system. You can also look at all the information that was actually captured at the time of scanning, including any database lookup functions, so you can see what sort of data was collected. You can also look at the events that were actually updated. So if a tax assessment update event occurred, it would have updated all these values into Tax Manager. But in this particular case, it failed because it couldn't find a return. In this case, it did. So we could open up Tax Manager and see that Tax Manager has been successfully updated with all the data that was scanned and captured. The other thing we might want to do is we might be in charge of BPA and producing any letters. So if we click on our Personal tab and the Digital Imaging To Do tab, you can see that there are a bunch of letters available. BPA has generated these letters for us. Here is a copy of the scanned assessment, and the concept here is that you can open up the assessment. You most likely should have two screens to make life a little bit easier. You would open up this on one screen. You would then double click on the letter that was generated by BPA. You would interrogate the letter to make sure that the wording and the merges all worked, that all the data from the return has been posted and merged correctly into the letter, and if not, make your changes in Word, and then of course save the document. Once you've successfully saved the document, you can move on to the next document. So the concept here is that you interrogate each one of these letters, and then when you're ready, you can highlight the documents, right mouse click, and approve them for filing into the document management system. So this will take those Word documents and will send them directly into your preferred document management system. It deletes the documents from your system and adds a link to your virtual cabinet environment in this case, or if it's iManage or PM, you'll have a link in here. So now what you've got is the scanned document filed, and you've also got the letter automatically filed. From there on in, you can use any other workflow processes to deliver the documents to your clients. So that concludes how to simply process a batch, interrogate your digital imaging interface to see how the jobs went through the system, if there are any errors or warnings, and if you've got the forms assigned to have particular events, including letter generation, and you've got BPA set up to do that, then of course you can now go to your personal page if you are the person responsible, and you can see whatever letters are available for filing.